Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. For those of you that are new, my name is Nicole and this is Nicole's Kitchen. So today I'm going to be making one of our winter favorites. It is a classic shepherd's pie. Now we of course don't use meat in this household, so I have a really great recipe that is fantastic and people really enjoy, and it doesn't get rid of the traditional textures and the rich flavors that you get in a meat version. So I hope you enjoy this, and let's get started. So one of the first things I like to do is get the potatoes started. Because we still have to cook up a lot of things, I like to kind of incorporate things at the same time so that we have a really nice dish that's presented reasonably warm. So for the mashed potato, I use a yellow flesh potato. I like to use yellow flesh potatoes just in terms of the texture. It comes out really nice, really velvety, so it's the kind of the perfect starch to use for any type of mash. So I'm going to just go ahead, cut up this whole pot. We're going to be building the shepherd's pie in a cast iron, so you need to be able to fill that top there. Now some people, they like to peel your potatoes. You're more than welcome to peel your potatoes. I don't peel my potatoes. I put my potatoes in the pot with some water just so that I know I don't overflow once they get cut up. Now because I want this dish to be done reasonably quickly, I'm going to cut my potatoes into like a fairly small size chunk. And you want them to be fairly uniform, although don't spend all day trying to make everything this exact same size. Look. So water's getting nice and warm now. Get a little on top of there. Wait for it to boil. So for our filling, I want to just build it in the exact same pan that we're going to use to throw it into the oven. If you don't have a cast iron or an oven-safe pan, you can create the filling in a frying pan, put it into a baking dish, and then cover it with the potato once you're done. But out of ease and to create a few less dishes, I always just kind of build it into the one dish right here. So I've got this starting to warm up. While it's starting to warm up, I'm going to get some of my vegetables started. So we're going to start with dicing up some shallots, some of my favorite onions to use. Again, just because it doesn't have the extra pungency that can sometimes take over a dish as other onions might. It's a very nice, delicate, sweet onion. Just got another casing. And this is great because the filling comes together nice and quickly. You can really make it your own. If you like certain vegetables, you don't like certain vegetables, if you hate mushrooms, you can get rid of the mushrooms, substitute it for something else. If you prefer different grain, go for that. If your kids don't like peas, if they do corn, you can put corn in there. You can really do whatever you want. I think I might actually add a little bit of corn to mine now that I've just said that. The shallots. And you might be tempted to get everything prepped and just kind of dump it in all at the exact same time, which, don't get me wrong, you'll get a shepherd's pie at the end of the day, but if you really want to be able to have those nice, that rich depth, robust flavor, the layering of all of the flavors and the spices is really kind of key to get that. So I'm feeling pretty hot here. Get a little bit of oil, see about maybe a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of oil. So it's nice and shimmery. Sizzle what you want to hear. just going to let those cook down for 3 to 5 minutes. Just let them soften up a little bit. And while we wait for that, we're going to do the rest of our veg. So we've got 3 cloves of garlic here. Make sure that you're keeping your eye on your onions. You don't want to burn them. You won't get that burnt flavor in the shepherd's pie. If you feel more comfortable prepping everything ahead of time, absolutely by all means do that. If I have time, I love to do that. But we're racing against naps and hungry people. So, 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to chop that down. Onions are starting to get a little bit translucent there. I'm going to add my garlic. The garlic moving around. We'll start breaking down all the rest of our vegetables, and as we get it cut down, we're going to start adding it to our mixture here. Carrots, I like to add about, I'd say it's going to end up being about 1.5 cups, 2 cups of carrots. Again, feel free to peel off, you don't need to though. And I say any carrot that's got a diameter larger than an inch, you're going to want to cut that down just to help with the breakdown. A lot of times, if I have a lot of these nubs of carrots especially, if I have like a salad going on the side with our dinner, I'll just save that and shave that on top. Are in, give it a stir. And then we're going to move on to our mushrooms. So mushrooms are a fantastic food. They're great superfood. You don't have to worry about them being organic necessarily because they are such a delicate produce. You can't be using heavy pesticides around mushrooms or you aren't going to have mushrooms. So you don't have to pay the extra money for the organic brand of mushrooms per se. So just to slice these mushrooms, I use brown cremini mushrooms. Feel free to use whatever mushroom you want. These are great for you, great antioxidant. They got tons of minerals. A lot of those essential nutrients and vitamins that we're looking for in our food can be found in mushrooms. And if we're eating seasonally, mushrooms, onions, potatoes, that's a lot of what you're going to be able to find naturally at this time of the year in this area. Just keep these guys moving. We're just working on slowly, building the flavors, softening our produce, and slowly packing this pie with tons and tons of good stuff. And so these mushrooms, you can slice them, they will break down. It's a lot like spinach where you put a lot in and you don't get a lot out. So don't feel like you're putting too much. I used a whole 230 grams, so it's like an 8-ounce package of mushrooms. So yeah, mushrooms in. Mushrooms are in, get them moving around. We'll give them maybe 5 minutes and then we'll start layering some spices in there. And we'll just give it a little bit of salt. I'm just going to lay my thyme. My rosemary right on top right there. I'm not really worried about mixing it in quite yet. Okay, so the veggies are starting to soften up here. Again, I'm not worried about everything being completely cooked. They're going to go into the oven for quite some time. It's just about starting to exhaust the flavors, which we're doing. Alright, so now that my mushroom is looking good, mushrooms are looking good. I'm going to start adding my thickeners. So one of the first things I use is a tomato paste. And I've got about 2 tablespoons. I used to use the whole mini can. People use ketchup. I personally like to use the tomato paste. If you want to add a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of coconut sugar in there, it goes a long way. As you know, tomatoes love salt, so we'll give them some salt. Let's give us a little bit of pepper. And of course, I've got thyme and rosemary already in there. And so now that my tomato paste is starting to cling onto my vegetables, I'm just going to thicken it up a little more. You can go without this thickener, you can use flour. I'm going to use a little bit of an arrowroot powder. It's just a little bit of a more friendly starch. I'm going to use no more than about a 1/4 cup. And this flour is just going to really work to thicken up the sauce and make it that nice thick gravy consistency that you're looking for. So we're going to let this cook down for probably another 5 minutes. Just let everything kind of start to absorb. Again, let the tomato cook down a little bit more. And then we'll start hitting it up with the rest of the ingredients. And so as it's cooking down, I'm starting to get the tomato is starting to stick to the sides a little bit, which is exactly what you want because then we're going to deglaze the pan and get all of those brown bits off of the edges. Okay, moving, we're shaking. So I have a nice paste here, so called gourmet ketchup. So to deglaze the pan, I'm going to use a red wine. If you don't like to consume alcohol, we are cooking off the alcohol in the actual wine, so you should only be getting the flavor. If you're really against it, you can use a little bit of red wine vinegar. I'd say probably use about half the amount. So I'm going to use about half a cup of this red wine. If you're going to use a red wine vinegar instead, you can use a quarter cup. So some corn. A little bit of you. Hear that sizzle. And smell the wine. And so with the liquid that you just added in there, you're just going to kind of scrape all of your edges. And scrape your bottom, especially the middle. And get all that flavor into your sauce. And so you're just going to let that cook off for about 2 minutes because you want to get rid of the actual alcohol content and retain the flavor. You should always put a wine in your food that you would drink yourself because you're going to taste the wine in there. So don't get cheap wine. That being said, you can use cheaper wine. Don't go get a $36 bottle. You know, that's just doesn't make sense. Cheers. So this has been cooking off for a couple minutes now. And we're going to start to add all of our other juices. So I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire. Maybe 2 teaspoons, I would say. And then we're going to start adding our, so because we're not using meat, I get my proteins in other ways, hemp, soy, beans, legumes, things like that. So for this dish in particular, I use green lentils. Yes, use green lentils, don't use red lentils. They react a little bit differently, they cook a little bit differently. They need to be soaked, all these other things. So green lentils is where you go. I also add some quinoa, another great protein. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's a fruit. That's what I heard. And so you just mix that in there. Make sure you get all those edges, the OCD in there. So before we add our other liquids, I'm just going to add the last bit of the veggies that we're putting in. So I'm going to put in some frozen peas. Put them in frozen at the end so that they retain their bright color. If you put them in the beginning with everything else, they're going to be like, they're going to look like lentils by the end. They're going to be dark and brown. They'll still taste fine. I guess it's just in terms of the presentation. So nice frozen peas. I'm going to actually put some corn in as well. Adds a nice color. Maybe half a cup of corn. Of frozen peas. Give it a good mix around. Of course, Blake chooses today to cut something down outside. Well, he's smart, I guess, right? It's the last day of warmth. So once you get everything in there, you're going to then need to add a little bit of a liquid. So I'm going to use a little bit of organic vegetable broth. So you should use. So use about 2 cups of vegetable broth. Get a nice mixture going on. Now it's going to be a little bit soupy. One, I'm going to be cooking it down a little bit on the stove top, but then we also have the quinoa and we have the lentils in there that are going to suck up a lot of this moisture. So while we mix around, I'm just going to also fish out my twigs of my fresh rosemary and my thyme. Good. So I'm just going to bring this up, get it boiling, and then while we're waiting for that to cook down a little bit, meld in some of those flavors, we're going to get our potatoes mashed and ready to go. Yeah, I just do everything in one pot because it makes me dishes to be doing everything in 6 different pots, even though I'm not the dish cook. We have boiled our potatoes down in a large colander and they are now fork tender, which you can see, nice and soft. And so I'm just going to start by mashing them a little bit. You can use a masher. There are formal tools for this, but I'm all for sieving the dish. So just use my mixer, the old school mixer, which if I had one wish, would be to have a fancy stand mixer because I think I'm just tiring. So that's all nicely mashed up. In terms of flavor, I'm going to put some Greek yogurt to make it nice and smooth. Got a half cup in there. And then I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of some clarified butter. I leave mine out at room temperature, so it's really easy to incorporate into dishes. And got a teaspoon of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I like to add a little bit of cheese to the top layer. Makes it nice and crusty, helps it bind. So maybe about 1/4 cup, 1/3 of a cup, and then we mix. Alright, I think we got the right texture there. Yeah. Just nice, pillowy. Perfect. So, just finished getting our mashed potatoes ready. This is nice and cooked down. Again, you're going to lose a lot more moisture in the cook in the oven. Just got the last twig out of here. And we're good to go. So I'm going to turn off my element. Get my oven warmed up to 375. And we'll just let that warm up while we build our mashed potatoes. Weird, right? I'm smelling this and I'm like, this smells delicious. So right now we're just going to layer our mashed potatoes on top of our mixture. I like to start on the outside edges and work myself in. If you don't get everything and you get a little bit of the juice coming over, don't worry about it. It actually presents really, really nice that way. So I just work my way from the outside inward. Getting a nice layer of potato. believe myself when I was making this. I was thinking, wow, you went a little overboard with the potato, but it's actually just perfect. Nice on top. You can do a nice little fork application. Let me go grab a fork. Yeah, it's gonna bubble over. It's gonna make a bit of a mess. And that's the beauty of a shepherd's pie, though. So sometimes you take the nice little wisps. So you just take a fork. I mean, I'm sure there's much more sophisticated ways of doing this to create fantastic patterns. More like a swish. Yeah, you're pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. You can put a little bit of extra cheese on top if you'd like as well. A touch of cheese. So seasoning every single layer of the way. Let's just go for it. And so once our oven is nice and warmed up, which we are 10 degrees away from, pop it in there, let it cook for 25 minutes. Just everything's cooked, everything's done. We're just incorporating the 2 layers now and toasting up that top layer. Again, the cook time isn't so much about things being made. Everything's cooked inside. Again, we're using vegetables, so you don't gotta be worried about things being raw. Carrots, legumes, all of that will be cooked down in 20 minutes. So give it 25. We're just really crisping off the top, melding the 2 layers. 25 minutes. 375. Now we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait. Now we're gonna clean up. Okay, so we have been cooking for about 25 minutes. Everything's looking nice and golden, crisp and brown on top. We've got a little bit of bubbling going on, so we're gonna pull it out and enjoy. All right, she's golden. If you want to take pictures of it, I guess if you're trying to Instagram it, you know, you put some towels below it, maybe put a carrot, a piece of thyme, a little sprig of rosemary, and that'll make it Instagram worthy. Okay, well that's it. I hope you've enjoyed watching how to make this vegetarian shepherd's pie. It's delicious. Your family will love it. It's hearty, it's wholesome, and you're missing nothing by eliminating the meat. So I hope you enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, you want to see more like it, feel free to subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you again later. Thanks.